everybody. Thanks for being with us today. We are here on another episode of The Skeleton Crew. Today, I have two great guests with me, Luca Bogoni and Gabe Swayze. They currently work at the company Carestream, and if you've been in the realm of radiology, you most definitely have heard of Carestream. I was just saying to them before we started that I have worked with them since I've become a technologist, so I'm super excited to discuss with them the past, the present, and then the future of where Carestream is going in the field of radiology. So thank you both so much for being with me today.
It's our pleasure. Thank you for having us here.
Yeah, we're very excited.
Awesome. So before we get started and delving into Carestream, Luca and Gabe, could you both give us just like a small background of yourselves and where you were in the past and then how you kind of ended up here in Carestream? Gabe, do you want to start?
Sure. So I am certified in radiography, of course, but also quality management. So that kind of brought me around to different things in the field, being able to become a better tech because of it. I've been with Carestream for 2.5 years now, and I thoroughly enjoy my job as a clinical specialist for Carestream. And I get to visit radiology departments across the nation where I meet some amazing people. I get to show everyone how our equipment really can make their lives easier. And yeah, I fell in love with Carestream before I started working for Carestream. Actually, we had a unit installed, and it's just so user-friendly. And yeah.
I've worked with, like I said, Carestream in the past, and it is very user-friendly. I enjoy the products from there. So go ahead, Luca, give us a little background of yourself, please.
Right. So, well, I've been at Carestream now for 2.5 years in the role of head of innovations. And my background is long and varied, portion in computer vision, robotics, medical imaging, medical devices, clinical study, regulatories, and so on. But what I really enjoy doing here at Carestream is leading the innovation, taking ideas into products that have a clinical impact. If they are not going to have a large clinical impact, they lose the purpose. So for me, this is the excitement. And at Carestream, I am surrounded by a whole host of folks that are very capable. And here is the opportunity for us to develop these ones.
Mm-hmm. So do you want to give us a little insight to the background of Carestream and kind of how we've led into the future of what we'll discuss further about the innovations that are going on?
Oh, yes, of course. So Carestream has got 100 years of experience in the imaging business, having come from Kodak. Carestream has a long history of game-changing innovation that have become commonplace in the healthcare industry. For instance, Carestream in 2009 disrupted the medical film by introducing this drive view, which is essentially the first tabletop laser printing for mammography and general radiology. So that got rid of all the nasty chemicals that people had to deal with it. In the same year, they introduced this DXR detector that was the first wireless detector. So you could take detectors, untether them, moving them around wherever they were needed. And in 2012, they introduced the mobile detector, the cart, the DR Revo. And that had also a collapsible column. So it meant that we could bring the imaging to the bedside of patients. So a big transformative care, the way to deliver care. And recently in 2019, Carestream introduced differential filtration for dual energy. What that does, it affords optimizing the spectrum whilst reducing those same image quality, but reduce those for dual energy. Mm-hmm. And then just recently, a couple of years ago, in 2021, there was the introduction of the first AI-based noise cancellation solutions. So that solution is really interesting because the system is trained to understand, an AI system is trained to understand the characteristic of the noise and subtracts it out from the image. So you had better image quality at the end, but it also offers the opportunity to halving the dose to the patients.
So for someone who might be listening, who isn't actually like works in radiology like myself and Gabe and yourself, could you just do like a brief overview of what noise means in an image?
Yeah. So noise is this kind of fuzziness that you get, these speckles, and it manifests in many different ways, but it's not crisp and clear. And why is that important? We talk about signal to noise ratio, the importance of the information. If you get a lot of noise, it becomes kind of hard to see details that are critical to the diagnostic part, that they may obfuscate the actual manifestation of a disease. So the ability of reducing noise. Think of having your TV a high quality, the high definition, the 4K versus the 256 of something seen far away.
That's a great example of it. So talking about, all these different advancements that you've done with technology, where are we currently going with it now? Do you guys want to share, or, what are you currently out there in the field doing?
Gabe maybe can tell us more about the latest technology that impacts radiographer and technologists.
Yeah, I mean, more recently, we've been expanding our offerings of software features. We're going to help streamline workflow and provide for more consistent positioning. Two of the latest that have come out recently, I'm excited to talk about, is our smart room and our DRXLC detector. I travel a lot and I see the same thing over and over in all these radiology departments. Everyone's short-staffed, everyone's volumes are increasing. And our solution to that is our smart room. It's all about helping you optimize workflow and getting you back to focusing on your patient. For example, a PA chest exam, the equipment's going to automatically adjust so that the tube and the wall bucky are going to match the height of your patient. 3D cameras are going to automatically detect patient size and set your technique and your collimation per that patient. In addition, the cameras are going to be able to detect whether or not the patient's in the correct position. And then you're going to go back to your X-ray console and you're going to look at that screen, and there's going to be a camera that you can see your patient on screen. And maybe they moved a little. You can, by voice, have them shift or move, but you also have virtual collimators right there on the screen. So you can adjust your collimation on the fly without having to go back and forth into the room. And so our DRXLC detector is the second thing I wanted to talk about. You normally have those 2 or 3 images, the patient moves, and you have to repeat the whole exam, or you didn't even realize they moved, and now your images won't stitch properly, right? Mm-hmm. So the DRXLC detector is a full 17 by 48 inches wireless detector, so you can get the whole spine in a single shot. And it really stands out for it being a cesium iodide scintillator. It's going to really tolerate that high KVP and low mass. It's a faster workflow, right? You're going to have less chance for that patient to squirm, and you don't have to worry about whether or not it's stitched. It's just good to go. Image quality is really good, but even better, it is a wireless detector. So you can actually add this onto any room with our retrofit option.
That's awesome. Yeah. I mean, to this point, starting as a technologist about 10, 11 years ago at this point, started with, separate cassettes that you would slip in and then have to take out, and then you had to put into the processor, and then you had to pick that you had 3 cassettes, and then it would figure out how it would stitch it all together. And now the one that I've worked with most recently, still takes the 3 separate shots, but it moves the bucky all on its own, but you still have to have the images stitched together. So the stitching is the tricky part.
For sure.
So, Luca, did you have a hand in helping develop any of this, or having a little brain power put into that somewhere?
Yes. I think there is actually some additional exciting technology that comes along with that. It's the post-processing, some of the AI that goes into place to make sure that we are able to monitor the patient, whether subtract off to the background, make sure that the proper calibration is done so that we can automatically determine the technique. So all of these are coming into, some of them are already in place and some more of these are coming. It's important to understand that in the arch of the clinical care of the patient, AI starts at the image formation. You can bring to bear the image formation. And then even before, you can assist the technologist to make sure that the image is taken right. As you remove, as Gabe was telling us, remove some of the variability there. Before you enter the post-processing, the analytical part, the diagnostic part. And we can talk a little bit more about that. Let me start with that then, and giving you a view of not just AI, but talking about where innovation are coming, in which area, and innovation that will revolutionize the medical imaging altogether. There are three areas. One that continues what we started in 2012 of bringing imaging to the patient rather than the patient to the imaging, right? The point of care delivery. Mm-hmm. The next one, there are advances in clinical and therapeutic. So there is new role that X-ray can begin to play. And then yet another dimension of this, of innovation, is called dynamic X-ray imaging. Regarding the point of care, so there are aspects, intelligent and not just AI, considering all the components that are integrated right as part of one system. So not just the tube, not just the detector, the processing, but how they work collectively. The second point of care is pertaining interventional procedures that can be performed at bedside. So these are new directions for point of care. Let's talk about the point of care, how AI can help. For instance, you know that as you're taking images, consistent imaging is really important. You know, if you think of the rounds, the ICU morning rounds. And so making sure that the image of the patient is acquired through the same angle, the same orientation, with the same technique, because it's not going to be the same person taking those images. Right. But if there are variations that are not due to disease exacerbation, but due to the acquisition aspect, then they may lead to some misinterpretation. And so it's key that there is an opportunity for AI to be able to recognize how the pose, the acquisition, the angle, and all of that, the orientation, the distance, are they consistent with the previous one? And if COVID has taught us anything about in the last couple of years, it's about the issue about moving patients and isolating them and dealing with infection controls. And if you think about intra-hospital transport lead to a lot of patient complications. A recent publication, recent as this past year, 2022, in the American Journal of Emergency Medicine, has reported that patient in the transport from ICU to the imaging modality to a surgical intervention room can experience adverse events up to 72%. Of the transports. They depend on patient condition, of course, and also the skill of the transport staff, right? But and these range from patient discomfort to equipment failure and cardiac arrest. And they often result into lengthening of stay. So being able to deliver that care, the quality, whether it is taking a snapshot reliably or whether it's taking or offering the capability to do interventional procedures at bedside, is really, it's really critical, not just for the patient, but if you think of the entourage of people that have to unpack a patient from the ICU, remove the ECMO, the ventilators, move them down, wait, and all of that is an inefficient utilization of resources. So here, point of care delivery, X-ray, it's a great opportunity. And with that, I think X-ray is gaining back a larger role, both in diagnosis and management. So, you know, traditionally X-ray is fantastic for musculoskeletal, right? Think fractures, chest, think of pneumonia, and of course mammography, although now is digital breast tomosynthesis that has replaced the conventional mammography, right? But oftentimes X-rays only play a gateway role, you know. If you think you've had, you go to your primary care physician, you've had injured your knee, you fall, you had a bicycle accident, and it checks your knee and it says, oh, we really need to take an MRI. But the requirement for the insurance companies for you to get an X-ray that may reveal something or they may not. It is useful, but it doesn't have quite the right value. And if you think about MRIs, for instance, or CT, those modalities are really important, but they are not ubiquitous. 2/3 of the world doesn't have those resources. Just to anchor on something concretely, the US has about 38 MRI per million people. Japan has got 57 per million people. Mexico has 3 MRI machines per million people. Wow. And the whole country of Colombia, that's got more than 50 million people, has 10. So availability, access to a modality that can offer diagnostic capability and even patient monitoring, it's really important. It's a necessity given the resources, but also given that AI is really transforming X-ray in many ways. It's become more relevant, not only in the context of musculoskeletal. I mean, you've interviewed in your previous podcast some folks from Gleamer, right? You've talked about fractures and so on. But it's also expanding in areas that are traditionally land of CT. And I want to give you an example of the research that we're doing today that denotes a potential expansion of X-ray as a utility that also democratizes access and is impacting patient care. So a couple of years ago, Carestream joined OSIC. It's a consortium, nonprofit imaging consortium that in its inception was focused on creating a worldwide repository for patients suffering from idiopathic pulmonary fibrosis. It's a type of fibrosis, and most people don't know about it, but there are about 40,000 people in the US that die yearly for that. It's 5,000 more than prostate cancer. And what's worse, there is really not effective therapy. And IPF is hard to recognize. So it's not only a lot of casualty, but it's also hard to find out. So once one gets the first symptom, it takes about 2 years to be recognized and be sent to a pulmonologist and get a CT. And even then, only the survival rate, it's ranged between 3 to 5 years. So it's a huge health crisis, right? So wouldn't it be great if we could leverage X-ray as a ubiquitous image modality to diagnose IPF early and maybe even monitor with therapies as they become available? So earlier this year, Carestream and OSIC launched a project called Opus that collects all this data, including X-ray and other spirometry data and other ancillary data, with the goal of including some AI post-processing to enable the detect of IPF. And we are also partnering with other companies to do this, because any of these tasks, as you probably heard from some of your other guests, can be really daunting, and there is data and so on, and we can talk about that a little bit later. One of the companies, Medical IP, that is a Korean company that does analysis of X-rays, really interesting topics there for the quantification. And we're doing research also with Johns Hopkins.
So is this AI then, is it used in, obviously it helps in the diagnosis, but could it help with like early diagnosis?
Yes, that's the whole point. I mean, we look to be able to recognize this disease earlier. There is new companies that are doing also some really exciting quantification. Analyze AI, for instance, do a whole sort of quantification of diseases, L-unit they identified, but IPF hasn't been quite touched yet. Also, an exciting piece that is the segue to my next topic, which is X-ray in motion. Right? So we're talking about lung compliance. So X-ray traditionally is just one snapshot. It's been that way for hundreds of years. It got better quality, better resolution, and we talked about it. But the dynamic part is where you can see some of these characteristics that are really informative from a diagnostic standpoint. Let's think about as capturing like a little mini movie of an X-ray through a breathing cycle, and then applying some fairly sophisticated mathematics and AI to quantify the lungs as they expand, as they comply, right? Nowadays, that if you think of someone that's got COPD, for instance, right? They have COPD, what do the standard of care is using spirometry. You blow in this little tube, bubbles goes up, and you quantify how much the lung change, but you have no idea which lung is complying, which one is not. Is therapy effective? Yes, it's done because that's what we have, but here X-ray will offer a fantastic advantage. I think that this area of X-ray imaging will disrupt clinical care. We're just touching the surface. Just imagine, you have done, I'm sure you and Gab have done many of these musculoskeletal studies, right? You do some fluoro study for look at articulation, you do swallow studies, right? But what if you can actually instead of taking a standard standing pose on this fantastic one-shot detector that you can see the whole legs, right? What if you can actually have the patient step on something, because that's when he feels pain, not just when he's standing, right? Step or getting down, and or articulating, moving the hand or moving the arm and say, it doesn't hurt. Oh, it really hurts here, right? So there is information in the dynamics part, and there is kinematics. We have done that. If you think of all these movies and avatars and all this crazy stuff that we are doing with media, medical science is bringing medical innovation, is bringing this knowledge from other fields to bear into this area. So I think there is X-ray at point of care, static or dynamic, interventional or better consistent imaging. There is the ability of doing really for X-ray, take a new role. If you think back of IPF, it's CT, but CT and MRI are not really available everywhere. As the rest of the world doesn't run on CT and MRI, right? Portable X-ray in field radiologies are ubiquitous. And that's where people need it. And then this dynamic aspect. We can talk on and on, but I think these are really areas, fulcrums that will transform X-ray, the role that X-ray plays.
This episode is brought to you by xraytechnicianschools.com. If you're considering a career in X-ray, visit xraytechnicianschools.com to explore schools and to get honest information on career paths, salaries, and degree options.
Let's switch from, the more technical end on there to kind of move into like the clinical world where Gabe and myself are. And, you're going out as a clinical specialist. Can you say exactly what that means from a Carestream point of view, what a clinical specialist is?
Yeah. So as a clinical specialist, my job is to help sites optimize their workflow with our Carestream equipment. Whether that's going in and making sure that they don't have any questions, making sure they have a full understanding of what all their equipment can do, or like just troubleshooting and helping them through things.
I'm sure that you've experienced, troubleshooting problems and techs being like, I don't know what's going on. Like, how can I do this? How can I do that? What's your best tips and advice for a technologist who's using Carestream?
From Carestream's perspective, a big part of it is knowing what all your equipment can do. So if you don't know the features and functions, you're not going to be able to use it to its optimal capabilities. You mentioned the staff getting new equipment, and we come in for that training, right? Well, sometimes that training is a little overwhelming. It's a lot. My advice, ask all the questions while your person is on site. But you can also ask for additional training should you need it. And I think we mentioned this earlier too, the cesium iodide detector, the scintillators, and how they are really going to tolerate that high KVP in low mass. Well, it might be a good idea to go through your techniques, review your techniques, make sure your EIs are matching what they should be matching. And that way, what that optimal range is so that you're supplying the accurate techniques.
Have you found going out into, different sites that some people might be, what exactly is that, or something that they don't even pay attention to?
I definitely get a mixed bag on that.
Yeah.
So some have definitely fully understood it. They're living by that number. And then some maybe not so much. But I think part of that is just a lack of understanding. One of my favorite things is it's called the deviation index. I don't know if you've heard of that. Mm-hmm. It actually came out from the IEC and the AAPM back, I think I don't want to misquote the year, but 2012, 2014 area. They said all these different manufacturers have different numbers and we want a universal number. So the deviation index actually applies to all manufacturers, and essentially 0 is your goal. 0 is easy to remember. And then the optimal range is going to be like -3 to +3. Easier number to remember.
So this new technology that recently come out with, you have the 3D cameras and you're lining this up and it's adjusting to the height of the patient. Do you find that you have to maybe, do a little bit more explaining or a little bit more like hands-on approach with sites that you're going out to help them? Because it sounds like life-changing in terms of being a technologist, but getting used to lining it up or maybe the computer software portion of it?
We've definitely gotten really good feedback about it. And a huge part of why I like Carestream is because it's so user friendly. That just continues with the smart room for sure.
Gabe, what has been, since you've been with the company, what has probably been one of your favorite things about being there at Carestream, or maybe one of the products that you've helped implement going out into the field?
Favorite thing is just meeting all of the amazing people. I've met a lot of people, and the connections that I've gotten to make, it's unbeatable. Like, and I wouldn't get that anywhere else. And then maybe a favorite product, I love that DRXLC. That is game changer in the OR, especially.
So how would you use it in the OR?
Oh, there's so many different ways. So Jackson table lowers down, you can stick it under there and you can do an AP for a missing surgical instrument. You can get that all in one shot and not have to do multiple and try to search, and it saves time, right? When they're doing multiple levels. I was at a site recently and they did 13 levels in one surgery of the spine.
Wow.
You can do one shot and get all of that.
How about you, Luca? Let's talk about favorites here. What do you think has been one of the favorite things that you've worked on?
Yeah, I think there are quite a few favorite in my tenure, because as you see, we have a long history here. But I think is some of these portion that deal with these smart rooms. So bringing in the smartness in the room, in the workflow, how to fit it all together, and then thinking about I'm a little bit ahead of the game here. I'm looking a little bit out. So at the one end, incorporating the feedback that we get in from folks like Gabe that tells us, oh, this little widget could be a little bit better yet, so incorporating that. I think some of my favorites are things that are still under the hood. So we haven't them out yet. Something that we will see soon is automatically getting just the right pose for being able to provide the standardization of pose for the various studies, right? To make sure that the source and the detector are just lining up in the right way. If you think about the odontoid acquisitions, right? And so you position your patient, and yours may be different from Gabe's, but so the system, and as you set them up and you go back to take the acquisition, at that moment, the patient sneezes and then goes back. But are they really back? So the ability of telling you how much the pose has changed from what, and then your ability to communicate without going there, repositioning chin and all of that, saying something to the effect, move a little bit up, open your mouth a little bit, turn to the right, not too much, to the left, perfect. So interact with the patient whilst the system in real time monitors the pose, saves so much time. So time, exposure, consistency, I think those are really exciting components that would yield good clinical value, good efficiency, good satisfaction from customers, from patients, from people that are overburdened by the requirement of taking images and doing all of this and setting everything up manually. And the list goes on. But I think more concrete, this is one of the features that it's a little bit there already, but we're expanding it to all body parts.
How long would you say that, development goes into something before it's released?
I think things are getting done at a faster pace nowadays because the AI components, there is a lot of what they call models out there, AI models that you can borrow, and transfer learning and all sorts of things like that. So timing can be a little bit more compressed. It could vary anywhere from 2 years or longer, depends. And that is a good segue to that, is really to say what goes into making these solutions. Some of them have to do with the challenges. The challenges is getting data, image data that is representative of the population. Similarly, for diseases, you need to have a broader population, geographical, as well as a representation of disease, as well as demographic, because not all diseases are created equal. And in the pose aspect, for instance, there is a whole source of appearance of people. So making a solution robust takes quite a bit. And whereas this solution that guides, that can provide assistance to a technologist is a feedback regarding pose, where a little bit of error, if I say move, if I give you a sense that it should be moving 5 millimeters or to the right or to the left, it's not significant. When you're talking about that in the context of diagnosis, that's a whole different story, right? So those are kind of the challenges, the data, the availability of the data, and because there is PHI that comes into place, privacy concern and all of that. But there are solutions for that as well. I just want to give one last teaser as we're having now this call back. We're getting together 3-4 years from now. And where could we be in 3-4 years from now? And let's talk about this example of just the adjustment of the technique of the pose and getting the images looking just right, right? We have seen in the media the ability of giving description in Midjourney. I would like to see a landscape that's got a starship and 3 little frolicking bunnies in front of it. And you get a variety of those, and then you say, oh, that looks good. So here the story, there is an analogous where you could describe the type of images, because as you know, there is customization. Every site have their own little flavor, right? There is the Carestream flavor, but then as you cook your recipe, you add a little bit more salt, and you know that your family doesn't like so much sugar. Don't know who does, but mine does. It would be good, and where I see is this ability to say, you get a template image of, you get your first acquisition, and then you look retrospectively, the system sieves through the repository in the packs, and then it knows underneath it how to transform the image to meet your requirements, so that then Gabe could say, or Jen could say, oh, I would like the edges a little bit more sharp, and this area a little bit change in balance, and that's it, it's done. I think that's where we're heading, reducing this reliance on subjectivity, reducing the reliance on experience. Not that it's a bad thing by all means, but it affords a leveraging of people that have different expertise, bring them all to the same level, assisting everybody equally. So I think these are opportunities that they may sound a little far-fetched now, but they're coming. And they will help us be better at what we do, make it easier, and deliver better quality in general.
You guys have offered so much great information today. I'm so thankful for your time. We're going to get wrapping up here, but Luca and Gabe, thank you so much for taking the time today to discuss Carestream, the past, the present, the future. Myself, as a technologist, I'm looking forward to see what is coming out. And I actually hope that I work in a facility that this 3D room, this smart room, is available. I mean, it sounds like a dream come true. And everybody, thanks for being with us today. This is Gabe Swayze and Luca Bugoni from Carestream. And
it was a pleasure.
Awesome. All right, everybody. We'll see you later. Have a good day.
You've been watching The Skeleton Crew, brought to you by XRayTechnicianSchools.com. On the next episode, join us to explore the present and the future of the rad tech career in the field of radiology.